Soothing story time. The Magic Frost Cow. The creatures of nature always loved snow. They loved snow almost as much as they loved stories. So when it snowed, they told winter stories. Beam went first. There was once a magic frost cow. She lived up at the snow-covered tops of mountains until the winter came and the snow fell. Then she would joyously run down the mountain and out into the world to help people. She was a very nice cow and spent spring, summer and winter coming up with ways to do nice things for people. The magic frost cow ate frozen grass and burped out snowballs. Her little moves could cover objects in frost, and her big moves could turn objects into ice. Her tail, when she swished it from side to side, could summon up a mighty wind that melted the snow from the trees. One morning, the magic frost cow awoke to find it snowing, and off she ran down the mountain and off into the world to find some people to make happy. She bounded across fields, leaving hoof prints in the snow, stopped for a snack, nosing the snow out of the way to eat the delicious frozen grass, and bounded off again in search of people or animals. She didn't mind what she helped. Well, she saw a small house in the distance and lowered herself closer to the ground and tiptoed along behind the hedges and peered over the hedges and sunk down and tiptoed again. Closer and closer she came to the little house. There was smoke coming out of the chimney. Now the magic frost cow had noticed how children make snow into shapes of people, gave them eyes out of fuel and noses out of food. So the magic frost cow summoned up her biggest burp and burped out a giant snowball as big as the little house, just a short way away from the little house. Then she burped out another one a little smaller. She spent a while pushing the smaller snowball up onto the first big snowball, then perched on the top of the smaller snowball, raised her head, jumped backwards and burped out a smaller snowball so it landed on top of the other. The magic frost cow landed and fell over. She bounced up again and looked at her work. She was thrilled. Now for the eyes and nose. They used fuel, so she pulled up the two nearest trees, which were large apple trees whose fruit were much loved by the family. The magic frost cow stuck the trees in the top giant snowball for eyes. Then she just needed the nose, some sort of vegetable, but she couldn't see one big enough. She rooted about in the snow found what she wanted, swished her tail, summoning a mighty wind that melted the snow on the potato field. She quickly dug them up, jumped up and down on the potatoes, made them into a long cone shape, and then breathed on it heavily to freeze it. She was pleased. She picked the nose up in her mouth and carried it to the gigantic snowman. She balanced on the middle snowball and shoved it in the top snowball. Oh, it didn't have a mouth. She found the family's raspberry bushes and shoved a row of them in, and then she snuck away to watch excitedly from a distance. Her favourite thing in the world was to be kind. Well, the people came out, saw the apple trees killed and stuck in a giant snowball, lots of their winter food dug up and ruined, and all their raspberry bushes ruined. They began to wail. The magic frost cow put her hoof in her mouth in shock. That wasn't supposed to happen. That was the complete opposite of what she wanted to happen. Why were they doing that? She'd done everything they did, hadn't she? Just bigger. Wasn't bigger better? Were they scared of the big snowman? What was the problem? Why did they hate it so much? The magic frost cow tried to listen, but was too far away to hear. She was very upset. Somehow it had all gone wrong. The first thing she tried. She was so sure it would work. She would have to make it up to them. But she was scared now, scared of ruining things again. For a while she sat and watched the people. One had climbed up to the head of the snowman and was tying a rope around one of the raspberry bushes. The other people, the big ones and the little ones and the old bent-over ones, all pulled on the rope, and the raspberry bush came out. The magic frost cow wondered how so many people managed to fit in such a tiny house. Why they wanted that twiggy thing so badly. She'd never seen a person eat it or do anything with it. They just sat there with no leaves. The magic frost cow didn't know about fruit. She only lived on snow and ice, and only came down from the mountains to the rest of the world when there was no fruit. She hardly ever saw flowers, insects, baby animals. When she did see a tiny crocus pop out of the snow in late winter, she thought it was so beautiful and couldn't understand why people didn't all stop and stare at it for hours like she did. Maybe she should give up. People were just different. She watched the people take out the raspberry bushes, then the trees, but the trees were too heavy to drag back to the holes they came from, even with all the people from the house pulling. Eventually they gave up, attached the rope to the nose and dragged it inside to have it for lunch. The magic frost cow still watched, feeling terrible. She wanted to run away, but a little nagging voice said she should be brave and try and sort it out. She made the problem, whatever it was, but she didn't want to be seen, so she would wait for dark. She did wait. Then she waited for the lights in the windows to go out. She snuck over to the giant snowman and dragged the apple trees back to the holes she took them from, stood them up, and put the dirt back around the roots. Then she didn't know what to do. She wanted so desperately to do something nice to make the people happy, but she didn't know what. An idea came to her. They liked snowmen, but small ones. So she made a tiny one next to the giant one, no bigger than her hoof. What else could she do? The people were upset when she moved the plants, so they must love those plants and trees. So she spent the rest of the night burping out tiny snowballs that she then moved on to freeze into the shapes of trees. In the morning, the people came out of their house to find their great apple trees back in the ground, and were so relieved. But when they turned behind the house, there was a forest of trees made out of snowballs, which was weird. They walked amongst the trees, watched from a distance by a very nervous magic cow, and wondered how this could have happened. Nothing strange had ever happened to them before, but it was beautiful, this sea of frozen trees. They looked like frozen apple trees. The magic frost cow had her hoof in her mouth again, waiting for a reaction. The people were stunned. Then they began to smile, and the magic frost cow let out a sigh of relief. The smaller people spent the day playing in the frozen forest, going back inside the house to warm up, then running back out to play again. One of the bigger people went off somewhere and came back with more people of all sizes, watched from a distance by a magic cow. The people marveled at first at the now damaged giant snowman, then the ice forest. The magic frost cow clapped her hooves together. They liked it too. She had made even more people happy. More and more people came until nightfall. The magic frost cow debated whether to make more trees. The people hadn't even noticed the tiny snowman, but she decided it was time to find more people and make them happy. So she bounced off into the darkness and didn't rip any more trees out of the ground ever again. She had noticed how some of the people liked to slip across frozen lakes and rivers. She was off to the river in the city, where all the people were, to freeze the river for miles in every direction. She wasn't sure of the name of the city, though she had heard it referred to by several people as a port, whatever that was. The end.